Your anxiety brought you here tonight, didn't it? That familiar weight on your chest, those thoughts that won't stop circling. I understand. You're safe now. Before we begin this journey together, if my voice feels like a friend you'd like to visit again, consider leaving a like or subscribing. But only if it feels right. No pressure in this peaceful space. And if you're listening from somewhere in this vast world, share your city and what time it is there. I love knowing that we're breathing together across time zones. Someone in Tokyo at sunrise, someone in London at midnight, all of us finding the same quiet moment. Now make yourself truly comfortable. Maybe dim those lights. Turn on a fan if you like that gentle hum. Grab an extra pillow. This is your time. In the next 3 hours, something beautiful is going to happen. Not because you'll try hard or do it right, but because you'll finally stop trying. The Buddha discovered something remarkable centuries ago. Peace isn't something you find. It's what remains when you stop searching. Tonight, I'll share 15 ancient Zen stories with you. Simple tales that work like medicine for modern exhaustion, for the 3 a.m. wake-ups, for tomorrow's worries that steal tonight's sleep, for that constant feeling that you're not enough. Already your breathing is changing. Your body remembers what your mind forgot. Peace lives in your cells, waiting. Let's begin this journey to stillness. Let me tell you about a pond that lives inside you. You might not know it's there, hidden beneath all that mental static, but it's been waiting, perfectly still, since you were very young. Maybe even before you learnt that stillness was something you could lose. Long ago, in a valley where mist rose like breath each morning, there was a small pond. Not grand or famous, not the kind of pond people travelled miles to see. Just a quiet circle of water, cradled by smooth stones that had been worn gentle by countless seasons. The trees leaned over it protectively, their branches creating a natural temple. Cedar and pine, their needles sometimes falling to float on the surface before sinking into the depths. This pond had a special quality. When the air was calm, its surface became so still, it could hold the entire sky. Not just reflect it, but hold it, as if the heavens had found a second home. Clouds drifted across it by day, stars appeared in its depths at night, the moon would visit, leaving silver footprints that lasted until dawn. The villagers knew about this pond. Some mornings, they would walk the forest path, just to sit beside it, not to speak, not to pray in the usual way, but to remember something they kept forgetting in the busyness of daily life. They would sit and watch their own faces appear in the water, and in that reflection, they would sometimes glimpse who they were before the world taught them to hurry. One evening, as the sky painted itself in purples and golds, a traveller arrived. His feet were dusty from many roads, his shoulders carried the weight of many miles, and even more thoughts. You know this weight. It's the same one you carry when you lie down at night, and your mind won't stop replaying conversations, when tomorrow's tasks line up like soldiers demanding attention, when yesterday's mistakes echo louder than today's mercies. The traveler had heard whispers about this pond, how it could show you something beyond your daily face, how it might offer what all his traveling hadn't found. Peace. That simple, impossibly elusive thing. Peace. He sat by the pond's edge, his legs folding beneath him with the creaking complaint of too many miles. He looked into the water. What he saw startled him. His own face, yes, but changed, distorted, worried lines etched deeper than he remembered, eyes that couldn't seem to rest even in reflection. Just then, a breeze stirred the surface. His reflection broke into 1,000 dancing pieces. "I look as scattered as I feel," he whispered to the approaching night. "This is you, isn't it? Looking at your life and seeing fragments, pieces that don't seem to fit, a face in the mirror that looks tired even after sleep, eyes that have forgotten how to soften." An old monk appeared, moving so quietly he might have been made of the mist itself. His robes were simple, the color of rain clouds. His feet barely disturbed the pine needles as he walked. He sat beside the traveler without invitation, without hurry. They watched the water together, the ripples slowly calming, the broken reflection beginning to gather itself. Finally, the monk asked softly, his voice like wind through leaves, "What do you see?" "I see chaos," the traveler replied. "I see my mind, never still, always churning. I see why I can't sleep, why I can't rest, why peace feels like a fairy tale told to children." The monk nodded with infinite gentleness, the kind of nod that says, "I understand," without words. The pond reflects clearly only when it's still, so it is with the mind. But notice something, friend. You cannot stop the wind from blowing. The practice isn't to control the wind. It's to watch the ripples with kindness and let them settle. Always, they settle if we let them. Right now, your mind might be creating its own wind. Maybe it's whispering about that email you forgot to send, or replaying that awkward moment from last week for the 100th time. Maybe it's fast-forwarding to tomorrow's presentation, or rewinding to that thing you wish you'd said differently. That's okay. That's just what minds do. They're like weather systems, always moving, always changing. The traveler closed his eyes. For a moment, his mind rebelled. "This is nonsense," it said. "Sitting by water won't pay your debts or solve your problems." But beneath that voice, something else stirred, a memory perhaps, of being young and unworried, of a time when sitting by water was enough. He listened to the evening sounds, crickets beginning their ancient songs, leaves whispering secrets to each other, a night bird calling once, then settling into silence. His breathing began to slow, not because he forced it, but because breathing is like water. It finds its own level when we stop disturbing it. You're doing this right now. With each breath, the ripples in your inner pond are softening. You don't have to make this happen. It's happening by itself. The way flowers open when the sun touches them, the way rivers find the sea, the way you find sleep when you stop chasing it. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within, do not seek it without." When he spoke these words, he wasn't giving us another task for our endless to-do lists. He was revealing a secret, so simple, we keep missing it. The peace you've been searching for in tomorrow's achievements, in other people's approval, in perfect circumstances, in one more purchase, one more accomplishment, one more anything, it's already here. It's always been here, waiting beneath the ripples like treasure at the bottom of a clear lake. Think about the last time you watched a sunset, really watched it, not while scrolling your phone or planning dinner, but gave it your complete attention. For just a moment, your mind stopped commentating. You weren't thinking about your to-do list or checking notifications. You were simply there, merged with the colors, part of the sky's slow transformation. That's your still pond. It doesn't require a sunset. It only requires you to stop stirring the water. The traveler opened his eyes. The last light was fading, but he could still see the pond's surface. It had stilled completely now. His reflection had returned, but different. The worry lines were still there. The tired eyes remained, but something had changed. He wasn't fighting his reflection anymore. He was simply seeing it, the way you might look at an old friend with compassion. "How long does it take to find lasting stillness?" he asked the monk. The monk smiled, and in that smile was both humor and kindness. "How long does it take for the pond to still after the wind passes?" "Sometimes moments, sometimes longer, but the pond doesn't count. It simply returns to its nature. As will you. This is happening to you too. As my words flow over you like gentle water, something inside is settling. Those urgent thoughts are still there, but they're floating on the surface now, and you're sinking peacefully below them, into depths that have always been calm, even when the surface was stormy. In our modern world, we've forgotten how to be still. We wake to alarms that jolt us from sleep. We check phones before our feet touch the floor. We consume 30 notifications before breakfast. Our minds become like that choppy pond, never getting a chance to reflect clearly. We've created lives where stillness feels like laziness, where quiet feels like loneliness, where doing nothing feels like failure. But your body remembers stillness. It knew it in the womb, floating in warm darkness, perfect contentment without a single thought. It knew it as a child, when you could stare at dust motes dancing in afternoon light, completely absorbed, time forgotten. It knows it now, even if your thoughts are still chattering, even if part of you is saying, "This isn't working," or "I have too much to do." The monk stood to leave. His movement was like water itself, necessary but unhurried. Before walking away, he touched the traveler's shoulder, just a moment of contact, but in it was transmission of something wordless. "The pond doesn't mind the wind," he said. "It knows stillness will return. It has infinite patience with the weather. Trust this. Your mind, like the pond, knows how to be still. You don't have to teach it. You only have to let it. You can trust this too. Tomorrow, when anxiety visits, when your mind spins stories about what might go wrong, when the inner weather becomes stormy, remember the pond. Remember that beneath every ripple, stillness waits, not as a goal to achieve, but as your deepest nature, as what you are when you stop trying to be something else. Let your breath be like soft rain on the pond now, each exhale smoothing the surface a little more. There's nothing to fix, nothing to change, nothing to improve. The water knows how to be still. You know how to be still. You've always known. You just forgot for a while in all the rushing. As we leave this first story, feel how it stays with you. The pond isn't just in the story, it's in your chest, in your breath, in the quiet spaces between your thoughts. Can you feel it? That stillness that's always been there, waiting so patiently for you to remember. The traveler stayed by the pond until the stars came out. He didn't solve any of his problems that night. He didn't have any great revelations, but something loosened in his chest. Some fist that had been clenched for years began to open. And in that opening, peace entered. Not dramatic peace, not the kind worth writing home about, just a simple sense of, oh, I can stop fighting now. This is my wish for you tonight, that you feel that same loosening, that same permission to stop fighting the water, to let your inner pond remember its own nature. And now, like water flowing into water, we move gently to our next teaching about learning to bend without breaking, about discovering strength in softness. In the same forest where the pond rested, two very different teachers grew side by side. One was an ancient oak, thick-trunked and proud. Its bark was deeply grooved, like the face of an elder who had weathered many seasons. The other was a grove of bamboo, slender and always swaying, dancing with every breath of wind as if hearing music others couldn't. You've met these two before, haven't you? The oak is that part of you that believes strength means never bending, the part that says yes to every request at work, because saying no feels like weakness, the part that holds everything together, even when you're exhausted, even when your body begs for rest, even when your heart whispers, enough. The oak had stood in that forest for 200 years. It had seen the village built. It had watched generations of children grow old. It wore its age like armor, proud of every ring in its trunk. When the wind blew, it stood firm. When rain fell, it barely swayed. It was, in every way, what we're taught to admire: solid, dependable, unshakable. The bamboo was different. It had arrived more recently, spreading from a single shoot into a living community. Where the oak stood alone, the bamboo grew together. Where the oak was rigid, the bamboo danced. Even the slightest breeze would set it swaying, back and forth, like prayer made visible. The oak would look at the bamboo dancing in every breeze and shake its mighty crown. "Why do you bend so easily?" it would ask, its voice like thunder. "Have you no backbone, no dignity? Look at me. I stand firm against all forces. I never yield. This is strength." The bamboo would sway and whisper back, its voice like silk. "Perhaps strength has more than one face. Perhaps what you call weakness, I call wisdom." This is the conversation happening inside you right now. Part of you thinks you need to be harder, stronger, more resistant to life's pressures. You should handle everything without complaint. You should never show fatigue. You should be the oak, unbreakable, reliable, never asking for help. But another part, a wiser part, is beginning to question this story, beginning to wonder if there's another way to be strong. For years, their debate continued, season after season, the oak growing thicker, more set in its ways, the bamboo growing taller, but never rigid. Villagers would rest in the oak's shade during hot summers. Children would play in the bamboo grove, delighted by its movement. Both were loved, both were needed, but they could never agree on the nature of strength. One night, the sky darkened with unusual speed, not the gentle darkening of sunset, but the angry purple of a storm that meant business. You know this kind of storm. It's the phone call that changes everything, the diagnosis that rewrites your future, the relationship that suddenly ends, the job that disappears without warning, life's winds that come not as breezes but as hurricanes. The storm hit the forest with tremendous force. Rain fell not in drops but in sheets. Wind howled through the valley like a living thing. Lightning split the darkness. Thunder shook the earth. It was the kind of storm that makes humans remember we're small, the kind that strips away illusions of control. The oak did what it always did. It stood firm. It clenched every fiber, tightened every ring of its ancient trunk. I have weathered worse, it thought. I will not bend. I will not break. I am oak. But the wind was stronger than pride, stronger than history, stronger than will. With a crack that echoed through the valley like a heartbreaking, the great oak split. 200 years of growth ended in a moment. It fell with the weight of all its certainty, crashed to the forest floor, and was still. The bamboo, oh, the bamboo, it danced wildly in the storm, bent until it nearly touched the ground, each stalk bowing so deeply it seemed impossible they wouldn't snap. The wind threw them east, then west. The rain beat them down. They looked like grass in a hurricane, fragile, overwhelmed, surely about to break. But they didn't fight the wind. They danced with it. They gave themselves to it. They bowed to its power without losing their roots. And when morning came, when the storm had spent its fury and moved on, the bamboo slowly, gracefully rose again. Wet, disheveled, but whole, still rooted, still alive, still able to dance. This isn't just a story about trees, it's about you lying here tonight carrying your own storms. Maybe you've been the oak lately, holding everything rigid, believing that if you just stay strong enough, work hard enough, control enough, nothing can hurt you. You've built your life on being unbreakable, but what does it cost you? Feel your body right now. Those places where you're holding tension, your shoulders perhaps, raised like shields, your jaw clenched against words you haven't said, your belly tight with tomorrow's worries. That's your inner oak, still trying to resist winds that have already passed, still bracing for storms that ended years ago. The Buddha taught that suffering comes not from pain itself, but from our resistance to it. The bamboo understood this in its very fiber. It didn't pretend the storm wasn't fierce. It didn't minimize the danger. It simply chose not to add its own force to the conflict. It chose to move with, rather than against. Think about the last time you faced something difficult. Maybe it was criticism from someone you respect. Your oak mind immediately went rigid, defending, explaining, proving why they were wrong, building walls, strengthening your position. But what if you had bent instead? What if you had said, "Tell me more," and really listened, not because they were right, but because bending doesn't break you, it frees you. Or perhaps it was a health scare. Your oak mind demanded you push through, ignore the symptoms, keep working, keep producing, keep being strong. But your body was asking you to bend, to rest, to yield to its wisdom, and in resisting, you created more storm than the illness itself. Right now, as you listen, you're learning the bamboo's secret. Each breath out is a small bow. Each release of tension is a gentle, yielding. You're not becoming weak, you're becoming wise. You're discovering that true strength isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise. In Japan, they have a phrase, Nana korobi ya oki. It means, fall down 7 times, get up 8. But the beauty isn't just in the getting up, it's in understanding that falling is not failure. It's the beginning of resilience. It's life teaching you to dance instead of stand. Your life has asked you to bend many times. When plans fell through despite your best efforts. When love changed shape without your permission. When your body said no to what your mind demanded. Each time, you had a choice. Resist or yield. Oak or bamboo. The bamboo teaches us that yielding is not giving up, it's giving over to what is, rather than what should be, giving over to the truth that we cannot control the wind. We can only choose how we dance with it. Feel your body right now, where you were rigid when we began. Something is softening, your breath is finding more space. Your muscles are remembering they don't have to hold the world. Your heart is unclenching, just a little. This is you becoming bamboo, not all at once, but breath by breath. The village mourned the great oak. Children who had played in its shade wept, but in time, they discovered something beautiful. Where the oak had fallen, new life began. Wildflowers that had waited centuries for sunlight finally bloomed. Small animals made homes in its trunk. The oak's death became life for others. Even in ending, it served. And the bamboo, it continued to grow, spreading its wisdom through underground roots. New shoots appeared each spring, each one knowing in its DNA how to bend, how to survive by yielding. The grove became a sanctuary, a place where people came to learn flexibility, to practice letting go. Tomorrow, when pressure comes, and it will come, you'll have a new choice. You can be the oak, meeting force with force, or you can be the bamboo, strong in your flexibility, bending so you don't break, dancing with difficulty instead of declaring war on it. The bamboo grove still grows in that forest. If you visit on a windy day, you can hear it, the sound of strength that knows how to yield, the whisper of wisdom that bends but doesn't break. It sounds like your breath right now, soft and rhythmic, rising and falling, never forcing, always returning. You too are growing, right here, in this gentle darkness, not toward rigidity, but toward a grace that can hold anything. The oaks falling wasn't tragedy, it was transformation. Sometimes we need to fall completely, to learn how to rise differently, to discover that strength has many faces, and the softest is often the strongest. Let yourself sway a little now. Even lying still, you can feel it, that inner flexibility returning, the permission to be human, to be imperfect, to bend when life asks you to bend. The storm of today is passing, the winds of thought are gentling, and you, like the bamboo, are still here, whole, breathing, bending into peace. Our next story flows naturally from this one. From learning to bend, we learn to empty. From letting go of rigidity, we discover the gift of space, the open cup that can receive. A young scholar traveled far to meet a Zen master. His mind was like your browser, with 47 tabs open, each one seemingly urgent, each one demanding attention. He had degrees from prestigious universities, could quote philosophers from memory, had written papers that impressed his professors, but still, something was missing. Peace eluded him like water through clenched fists. Sound familiar? How many books have you read searching for the answer? How many podcasts have you consumed? How many techniques have you tried? Each one promising to be the key, each one adding another layer to your already full mind. The scholar had heard about this particular master. They said he was different, that he taught without teaching, that people left his presence changed, not by what he said, but by what he didn't say. The scholar was skeptical but desperate, a dangerous combination that often leads to truth. The journey to the master's hut was arduous, up mountain paths that challenged his city, soft feet, through forests where the only sounds were his own breathing and birds he couldn't name. With each step, his mental arguments grew louder. "This is foolish," one voice said. "You already know enough." But another voice, quieter, urged him on. When he finally arrived, the master's dwelling surprised him. It wasn't grand, no golden statues, no elaborate decorations, just a simple wooden structure that seemed to grow from the mountain itself. Smoke rose gently from a chimney. A garden showed signs of recent tending. It was utterly ordinary, which somehow made it extraordinary. The master greeted him at the door, an old man with eyes that seemed amused by everything, including the scholar's obvious exhaustion and hidden arrogance. "Welcome," he said simply. "You must be tired. Come, sit." The scholar bowed formally and launched immediately into his introduction. "Master, I've studied the Diamond Sutra extensively. I understand the Four Noble Truths. I practice meditation daily, sometimes for hours. I've read every major Buddhist text. I've attended retreats with renowned teachers, but enlightenment hasn't come. Peace still escapes me. What am I missing? What more must I learn? The master listened without interrupting. His face showed neither approval nor judgment, just presence. When the scholar finally paused for breath, the master smiled and said simply, "Let's have tea." You've been this scholar, searching for peace in information, looking for rest in more doing, thinking, if you just learn enough, understand enough, achieve enough, accumulate enough, finally, you'll feel enough. But the hole inside seems to grow with each thing you pour into it. The master moved with unhurried grace, heating water over a small flame, selecting tea leaves with the care others might give to jewels. The scholar watched, impatient, his mind already forming arguments about time wasting, about getting to the real teaching. He didn't understand that the teaching had already begun. When the tea was ready, the master began pouring into the scholar's cup. The amber liquid rose steadily, steam carrying the scent of earth and time. It reached the halfway point, then 3/4, then the brim, but the master didn't stop. Tea overflowed onto the saucer, then onto the low wooden table, then onto the scholar's expensive robes, then onto the floor. Still the master poured, his face serene. "Master," the scholar cried, jumping back, "stop! The cup is full. No more will go in. You're wasting the tea." The master set down the pot gently. He looked at the scholar with those amused eyes. "Exactly. You are like this cup, so full of what you think you know, so full of your own opinions and conclusions. How can I show you Zen when you have no space to receive it? How can wisdom enter a mind already overflowing?" The scholar sat in stunned silence. For perhaps the first time in years, he had nothing to say. Right now, your cup is overflowing too, not just with knowledge, but with tomorrow's worries sitting heavy as stones, yesterday's regrets replaying on endless loop, stories about who you are and who you're not, beliefs about what you need to be happy, certainties that might be prisons. The Buddha called this beginner's mind, shoshin, not the mind that knows nothing, but the mind willing to hold things lightly, to see with fresh eyes, to meet each moment as if for the first time. Children have this naturally. They look at a flower like they've invented color. They hear rain like it's the world's first symphony. When did you lose this? When did your cup become so full that wonder couldn't find space? Feel what's in your cup right now. Maybe it's that running commentary about your worth. I should be further along by now. I'm too old to change. I've tried everything and nothing works. These thoughts are old tea, gone cold and bitter. They've been sitting in your cup so long you've forgotten they're not part of the cup itself. The scholar sat with the master for 3 days. At first, his mind raged, "This is waste of time. I could be reading. I could be practicing. I could be achieving." But slowly, something began to shift. They swept the floors together in silence. The scholar's mind initially composed essays about the meaning of sweeping, but eventually there was just the broom, just the floor, just the simple rhythm of care. They prepared meals. The scholar wanted to discuss the Buddhist philosophy of eating, but the master only smiled and chopped vegetables. Eventually, the scholar found himself absorbed in the colors, the textures, the sound of knife on wood. His theories faded, replaced by the simple miracle of carrots being orange. You're emptying now too. With each breath out, something releases, not forever, just for now, just enough to make room. Can you feel it? The spaciousness that's beginning to emerge. In our culture, empty feels like failure. Empty hands mean poverty. Empty calendar means unpopular. Empty achievements mean worthless. But in Zen, empty is sacred. The empty cup can receive. The empty room can welcome guests. The empty mind can finally rest. Think about your phone for a moment. How many apps are running in the background right now, draining battery, slowing everything down, sending notifications that pull you from the present? Your mind works the same way. Old programs running constantly, comparing, judging, defending, planning, regretting, worrying. What if you could close them? Not forever, not even for tomorrow, just for tonight. What if you could power down the part of you that needs to know everything, that needs to be right, that needs to have answers? On the third evening, the master poured tea again, this time into a fresh cup, this time stopping at just the right moment. "Now we can begin," he said. The scholar tasted that tea like he'd never had tea before, because in a way, he hadn't, not with an empty cup, not with a quiet mind, not with space to actually receive. The tea was the same, but the drinker was different. You're tasting something new right now too. This moment, this breath, this gentle darkness. They're not what your full cup expected. They're simpler, quieter, and somehow exactly enough. The master never gave the scholar the answers he came for, never explained the secret teaching, never revealed the hidden technique. Instead, he showed him something better, that the peace he sought wasn't in more, it was in less, that wisdom wasn't something to accumulate, it was space to be discovered. Your cup is making space now. Those heavy thoughts you carried into tonight, they're not gone, but they're floating lighter. There's room between them, room for breath, room for quiet, room for something new to enter. The Buddha said, "In the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you." That last part, that's your practice tonight. Letting go of thoughts not meant for this moment, letting go of problems that belong to tomorrow, letting go of the need to be anything other than here, now, breathing, empty enough to be filled with peace. The scholar left the mountain changed. His friends noticed immediately. "What did the master teach you?" they asked eagerly. He smiled and poured them tea, stopping at just the right moment. "He taught me when to stop pouring," he said. You're learning this too, when to stop adding, when to stop accumulating, when to stop filling your mind with more noise. The cup of your consciousness is beautiful, but only when there's room for light to play on its surface, only when there's space for peace to enter. And now, with a lighter cup, we flow into the next teaching about questions that have no answers, and why that might be the greatest relief of all. Sometimes the mind needs to break a little to remember what lies beyond thinking. A young monk named Tenzin was burning with the desire to understand, not the ordinary understanding of how things work, but the deep understanding of what things are. He meditated until his legs went numb. He studied until his eyes burned. He practiced until practice became another form of striving. Still, enlightenment remained a distant shore. His teacher, watching this fierce effort, decided it was time for a teaching that couldn't be grasped, only surrendered to. One morning, as Tenzin sat eager for instruction, the master gave him a riddle, not a normal riddle with a clever answer waiting to be discovered, but a koan, a question meant to break the mind's addiction to solving. Tenzin, the master said, his voice gentle as mist, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Tenzin blinked. Surely he had misheard. Master, do you mean what is the sound when I clap my hands together? No, the teacher smiled. One hand. What sound does one hand make when it claps? You know this feeling. Life gives you impossible questions too, not koans from masters, but equally unanswerable riddles. Why did this happen to me? What's my purpose? Will I ever be truly happy? When will I feel like enough? Questions that keep you awake at 3 a.m., turning them over and over, like stones that refuse to become smooth. Tenzin tried everything. First, the logical approaches. He clapped one hand against his chest that made a sound. No, said the master. He waved one hand through the air very fast. It made a whooshing noise. No, said the master. He snapped his fingers. That's still two things meeting, the master observed. Days passed. Tenzin's frustration grew like a tight knot in his chest. He tried philosophical answers. The sound is silence. The sound is everything. The sound is nothing. Each time, the master simply shook his head. Stop trying to be clever, the master finally said. The answer isn't in your thinking. This is what your mind does at 3 a.m. It takes unsolvable problems and attacks them like math equations. If I just think harder, if I just analyze more, if I just find the right angle. But what if some questions aren't meant to be solved? What if they're meant to dissolve the solver? Tenzin sat with this impossible question for weeks. At first, his mind fought like a trapped bird, beating against the cage of the unanswerable. He'd wake in the night with new theories, rush to his teacher with fresh interpretations, each one met with the same gentle, no. You're feeling this too, the exhaustion of trying to think your way to peace, the fatigue of attempting to solve your life like it's a problem, your mind spinning its wheels, creating more dust than movement. Then something began to shift, not all at once, but like ice beginning to crack in spring. Tenzin stopped looking for the answer, started feeling into the question. What if the point wasn't to find the sound? What if the point was to discover what happens when you stop searching? He began to notice things, the sound of his own breathing, the rustle of his robes when he walked, the way silence itself seemed alive, full of presence, full of something that didn't need words. One morning, as dawn painted the monastery walls gold, Tenzin sat in the garden. A leaf fell from a tree, spiraling down in perfect silence. He watched it, completely absorbed, not thinking, just watching. And suddenly, he understood. Not with his mind, but with something deeper. The sound of one hand isn't a sound at all, it's the silence that holds all sounds. It's the space between your thoughts right now. It's what's listening to these words. It's what's always been here. Before you learnt to think, before you learnt to worry, before you learned that you needed to become something other than what you are. The Buddha once pointed at the moon and told his students, "My teaching is like a finger pointing at the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you'll miss the heavenly glory." Your mind is always looking at fingers, analyzing the pointing, measuring the angle, debating the technique. But tonight, just for tonight, you're starting to see what they point toward, the vast quiet that holds everything, the peace that doesn't need explanation. Think about music for a moment. Without the silence between notes, it would just be noise. Your thoughts are the same. They need space to be beautiful. They need pause to have meaning. The sound of one hand is that space. It's what makes the music possible. Tenzin ran to his teacher, but when he arrived, he found he had nothing to say. How do you explain silence to someone?